didn't expect Christmas to come so early in the Philippines. In Russia, Christmas is in January. It's quiet, holy, and cold, like a prayer whispered into falling snow. People light candles in Orthodox churches, drink tea, and look out at the darkness that lasts 16 hours. It's not about gifts or Santa, it's about silence and light. But here, it was the first week of September when I walked into a grocery store in Cebu and heard, "All I want for Christmas is you." At first, I thought it was a prank. Maybe the staff forgot to change the playlist from last December. But then I saw the decorations. Plastic snowflakes, red ribbons, a cardboard Santa sweating beside a refrigerator full of Halo Halo. It was 34 degrees outside. I was holding a bottle of water and wiping sweat off my face, and somewhere behind me, a cashier was wearing a Santa hat. I laughed out loud. Not a polite smile, but an actual laugh. A few people turned and smiled back, like they were in on a joke I didn't understand. I had just arrived from Moscow 2 weeks earlier to work remotely for my company. The Philippines was supposed to be my reset button, a warm, cheerful country after years of gray winters and heavy news. I rented a small apartment near the sea, where roosters screamed before sunrise and kids played basketball barefoot on cracked pavement. I thought I was ready for everything. The humidity, the insects, the street food, the karaoke, but Christmas in September? That I wasn't prepared for. I asked the cashier, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a necklace of the Virgin Mary, "Miss, is this for last year's Christmas?" She looked confused. "No, ma'am. It's already beer months." "Christmas is coming." "Beer months?" "Yes, September, October, November, December," she said proudly, as if reciting sacred months of joy. I blinked. "So Christmas starts now?" She nodded, smiling so wide I couldn't help but smile too. "Yes, ma'am. Merry Christmas." It was September 4th. I walked out of the store, holding my groceries, listening to faint echoes of Mariah Carey blending with the sound of jeepneys. It felt surreal. I thought about telling my Russian friends online, but they would never believe me. Later that night, I asked my Filipino landlord, Tito Boy, about it. He was sitting outside, shirtless, drinking coffee at 9 p.m., like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Tito, why do people celebrate Christmas in September?" I asked. He chuckled, "Because we are excited. Life is hard, but Christmas makes us happy. You know, we start early, so happiness stays longer." I loved that answer. In Russia, we wait for joy carefully, like saving a candle for a dark night. Here, Filipinos light up everything at once, even months early, because joy is something they don't want to postpone. That night, I heard faint laughter and music from a nearby house. The sound of a karaoke machine drifted through the air, and someone was singing Silent Night terribly with deep emotion. I laughed again, sitting by my window, thinking, this country really doesn't wait for anything. The next day, I got invited to my first Filipino Christmas party, in September. It started with my neighbor, a woman named Marites. Not the gossip stereotype kind, but genuinely warm and loud. She saw me struggling with my laundry and said, "Ay, Russian ka pala. You join our Christmas party this weekend, huh?" I froze. This weekend? It's September, yes. We always start early. Just small celebration lang. Small celebration was one of the first Filipino phrases I learned means the exact opposite. She said it like it was a casual dinner. But by Friday, I realized small meant half the barangay. I could already hear loudspeakers being tested, children rehearsing dances, and men setting up tents. The air smelled like grilled pork and freshly cooked rice. Someone even hung a sign made of old tarpaulins, Pasko nasa Purok 5. I wanted to stay inside. I'm not a party person. In Moscow, my life was quiet, orderly. You don't just walk into a stranger's celebration. But curiosity won. How could I miss a Christmas party in September? So I baked a small chocolate cake, bought from the store and pretended it was homemade, and carried it to the open area. Everyone was already there. Kids running around with Santa hats, aunties preparing spaghetti with hot dogs, uncles drinking Red Horse, and a group of teenagers playing Last Christmas on repeat. When I entered, everyone turned. I was the only foreigner. Then Marites shouted, "Aye, everyone! This is our Russian neighbor. Her name is Anastasia." They all clapped. For a second, I wanted to disappear. But then someone handed me a plastic plate full of pancit and a glass of Coke with too much ice. "Taste it." "Taste it." Someone said it was delicious. Sweet, salty, simple, and for some reason comforting. Then the karaoke started. A man with a microphone screamed, "Okay, mga kabarangay, let's welcome Miss Russia. She will sing a Christmas song." I froze again. No, I can't sing, but it was too late. The microphone was in my hand. The screen flashed the lyrics of Feliz Navidad. I tried to keep up, stumbling through the words. People laughed, not to mock me, but to cheer me on. When I finally finished, the crowd clapped like I just performed at a concert. Someone shouted, "Grabe galing ng Russian natin!" I felt my cheeks burn, but I was laughing too. The night went on like a blur of lights and laughter. There were parlor games, trip to Jerusalem, which I didn't understand until I lost my chair and everyone screamed in joy. Then a raffle draw. Then dance contests. Then a random baby crowned as Little Santa. At one point, I found myself sitting beside an old woman, Lola Nena, who smiled at me with the sweetest eyes. "You know, anak," she said softly, "Christmas is our favorite time. Even if we don't have money, we celebrate. Because Christmas is not about gifts. It's about people being together." I nodded, touched by her words. In Moscow, Christmas felt lonely for many. Families scattered, cities silent, streets frozen. But here it was loud, chaotic, and warm, like a big family that didn't care if you were a stranger. Later that night, they played fireworks, tiny ones, not dangerous but bright enough to make kids scream in delight. I looked up at the sky, glowing with red and green sparks, and realized how beautiful human joy can be when it doesn't depend on perfection. People were dancing barefoot on the pavement. A man in a Santa hat offered me lechon. Someone started singing Pasko na Sinta Ko with tears in his eyes. And I thought, maybe this is why Christmas comes early here. Filipinos need no excuse to celebrate hope. I walked home around midnight. The air was still hot, but the laughter echoed through the streets. I sat by my window again, hearing karaoke continue from a few blocks away. I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Filipino Christmas doesn't wait for the date. It lives in their hearts all year. Maybe that's why this country feels like a home you didn't know you missed." The next morning, I woke up to Marites knocking at my door. "Anastasia, you join us again next Sunday, huh? We have another party." "Another Christmas party?" I asked, half joking. "Yes. Until December, every week may party." I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. I didn't know then that this September celebration was just the beginning of a series of events that would change how I saw the world, happiness, and home itself. Because as the months rolled by, from September to October, then November, Christmas in the Philippines wasn't just a season. It was a way of life. And for a Russian woman used to the cold, that warmth would soon melt more than just her idea of the holidays. It would melt her heart. By October, I had stopped questioning anything. Every night there was music, laughter, and the faint sound of karaoke drifting from one house to another. The neighborhood where I stayed in Cebu had fully transformed. Plastic stars hung from every window, Christmas lights blinked like restless fireflies, and someone's old speaker played Jingle Bell Rock loud enough for the whole street to share. At first, I thought it would get exhausting, all that cheer, all the noise, all the sugar. But it didn't. Somehow, it was like an energy that kept people moving through the hard days. One afternoon, I helped Marites decorate a bamboo pole outside her home. She called it a parol. I watched her wrap colored paper and glue around a delicate star frame, her hands moving fast and sure. "What is this for?" I asked. "It's for the birth of Jesus," she said, smiling. "But it's also a symbol of light. Even if life is dark, we hang a parol to remind us to hope." I love that. In Russia, we have candles and icons that carry meaning, but here even plastic and paper could glow with faith. I tried making my own parol with her guidance. It looked terrible, uneven, crooked, and the paper wrinkled like an old map. But when we plugged it in and the tiny bulb lit up, Marites clapped her hands like it was the most beautiful thing in the world. "See? Your first Filipino Christmas star," she said proudly. That night, I hung it outside my small apartment window. Kids passing by pointed at it, giggling, "The Russian-made parol!" And I felt strangely proud. By mid-October, my calendar was full of invitations, from small gatherings to barangay events to random practice parties that honestly looked like full-blown fiestas. Every time I tried to bring something to share, cookies, drinks, sometimes just laughter. And each time, people made me feel like family. I began to notice how generous Filipinos were, not because they had much, but because they gave without calculation. At every gathering, someone would hand me food even before they ate themselves. Kids would offer candy they clearly wanted to keep. A man once brought me a small cup of Halo Halo and said, "Try this, Miss Russia." You can't say Merry Christmas without Halo Halo in the tropics. I took one spoonful and laughed. Ice, milk, beans, jelly, purple yam. It was chaos in a cup. But somehow it worked. November came, and the air felt slightly cooler. It wasn't snow, but for locals it was Christmas weather. They would say, "Ah, hangin' na." The air feels like Christmas. While I stood there sweating lightly in shorts. One evening, Tito Boy invited me to something called Simbang Gabi practice. "You must experience this," he said. "It's our tradition before Christmas. You wake up very early, go to church, pray, and eat Puto, Bumbong, and Bibingka." "Wait," I said, "Christmas is still 1 month away." He just laughed. "Yes, but we prepare. It's part of the joy." That weekend, I joined him. The sky was still dark when we walked to the small chapel. I could hear roosters crowing and smell sweet rice cooking somewhere nearby. When we arrived, dozens of people were already there, sitting on plastic chairs, holding candles. The choir began singing, their voices soft but full. I didn't understand the words, but I felt them. I'm not deeply religious, but something about the calm faces, the flicker of candlelight, and the gentle breeze through the open doors made me feel peace. After the Mass, a vendor outside handed me a small bundle of something warm and wrapped in banana leaves. "Try, miss," she said. It was bibingka, soft rice cake with butter and cheese on top. Sweet and smoky. I took a bite and nearly sighed. Then came Puto Bumbong, purple rice steamed inside bamboo tubes sprinkled with sugar and coconut. I couldn't stop smiling. "This is your reward for waking up early?" I asked Tito Boy. He grinned. "Yes! And if you complete 9 mornings of Simbang Gabi, your wish will come true." "What did you wish for last year?" He looked up at the sky, thoughtful. "Just to be alive again this year." And here I am. That quiet answer stayed with me. In Russia, the holidays are solemn. Beautiful, but often heavy. Here, even faith had laughter woven through it. People prayed with hope, not fear. Their belief wasn't about perfection or guilt. It was about gratitude. Over the next weeks, I found myself blending in more than I expected. I learned to say po and opo, though not perfectly. I learned that come eat means you must eat, no excuses. I even learned to join karaoke without dying of embarrassment. My go-to song became "Let It Snow," and every time I sang it, someone shouted, "Bring snow here, Miss Russia." Then December came. The entire neighborhood transformed again. Louder, brighter, busier. The smell of roasted meat filled the air. Children ran around with sparklers, and speakers played Christmas carols nonstop. I was part of the decoration committee for the barangay now, and we spent afternoons stringing lights across houses. On December 15th, I joined the first official Simbang Gabi. We walked in the cool dawn air past rows of lanterns glowing softly. Inside the church, I looked around and realized something simple but profound. Everyone here had reasons to worry: bills, sickness, storms, work. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Faith, family, and food seemed to dissolve every sadness. After the Mass, a small boy offered me half his bibingka. "For you, Ate Russian," he said shyly. I wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. Later that day, I visited a local school where Marites worked. They were holding a gift drive for less fortunate kids. I helped wrap simple gifts: toys, notebooks, slippers. I noticed some of the teachers donating their own used items, cleaned and folded neatly. When the children came, their joy was explosive. One boy hugged a toy car like it was gold. A little girl wore the used slippers like they were glass shoes. That night, I sat outside my apartment again, looking at my crooked parol still shining brightly. I thought of Moscow, of snow and silence, of people rushing home through cold wind. I thought of my parents, both retired, probably watching TV with tea and thick blankets. For a moment, I missed that cold world, the stillness, the familiarity. But then I heard laughter from Maritez's house, saw Tito Boy dancing badly under blinking lights, and smelled sweet rice cooking again. Maybe, I thought, there are 2 kinds of warmth. One from fire, and one from people. In the Philippines, even strangers give you the second kind. When Christmas Eve finally came, I was ready. The whole barangay prepared food. There was lechon again, pancit, spaghetti with hot dogs, lumpia, fruit salad, and of course, karaoke. At midnight, everyone shouted, "Merry Christmas!" and hugged each other like one big family. Someone pulled me into a group photo, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like I belonged. The next morning, I woke up to quiet streets and tired smiles. Kids played with their new toys, old men slept on chairs, and women cleaned up dishes while still singing Christmas songs. I made coffee and sat by my window, feeling full. Not from food, but from something softer. I realized something that day. Back in Russia, Christmas meant waiting for light. Here, it meant being the light for others. It's easy to celebrate when life is perfect. It's harder and more beautiful when people celebrate despite imperfections. That was the Filipino way. As the weeks passed, I kept hearing people say, "Christmas never ends until February." I laughed at first, but they were right. Parties continued. Decorations stayed up. The parole still glowed outside my window. I didn't take it down. Not even when New Year came. Because something inside me had changed. The kind of change that's quiet but deep. The longer I stayed, the more I understood that the Philippines wasn't just a country that celebrated early. It was a country that refused to let joy expire. And maybe, for someone like me, who came from a cold world that measures time too carefully, this was the lesson I didn't know I needed. That happiness doesn't need a date. It just needs people willing to share it. By the time December rolled into January, the lights in Manila seemed brighter than ever. Streets were still lined with paroles, and the radio stations refused to stop playing Christmas songs, even though other countries were already back to normal life. I remember laughing one morning when my Filipino friend told me, "Christmas doesn't really end until after the Feast of the Three Kings." It was January 6th. Back in Russia, by that date, everything would already be cold, dark, and silent again. Decorations packed away, the cheer faded. But here, it was as if nobody wanted to let go of joy. The days after Christmas felt like a dream I didn't want to wake from. I stayed with the same family who had invited me to that first Christmas party in September. They insisted I couldn't just leave before New Year's Eve. "You haven't experienced the real pagsalubong sa bagong taon," the mother said with a knowing smile. "You'll see what it means to start fresh, the Filipino way." On December 31st, I woke up to chaos, the good kind. The smell of lechon roasting in the backyard mixed with the scent of burnt fireworks. The family's father was hammering something. The kids were running around wearing glittery 2025 glasses, and the grandmother was carefully arranging round fruits on the dining table. "Why circles?" I asked her. She laughed, showing me her gold earrings. "Because they mean money. We need luck for the new year." I helped her set the table, arranging 12 different round fruits. Oranges, apples, grapes, even a watermelon that seemed to barely fit. "Each fruit for each month," she said, tapping my hand gently. "So all your months will be full." There was something touching about how much hope Filipinos put into rituals, how every small act, even choosing fruit, carried a belief that tomorrow could be better. By noon, everyone was busy. The family group chat buzzed nonstop. Cousins were sending memes, uncles were sending voice notes, and the mother was yelling instructions into the phone. "Yes, bring the karaoke machine. No, don't forget the extension cord." It was like preparing for a small festival. That evening, I wore a bright red dress. For good luck, they told me, and I watched the neighborhood come alive. The streets looked like a movie scene. People grilling food, children throwing loosest sparklers, dogs barking, tricycles passing with passengers carrying gifts and fruit baskets. Music blasted from every corner, a mix of Christmas songs and dance hits. The atmosphere was electric, chaotic, and yet deeply warm. As the night approached, we gathered outside the house, sharing stories and laughing. One of the uncles handed me a glass of buko pandan and said, "In a few hours, you'll see. No one sleeps tonight." He wasn't joking. Before midnight, the sky started to fill with color. Fireworks shot in every direction, lighting up the horizon like a battlefield of joy. Kids screamed, dogs barked, and everyone was shouting numbers. 10, 9, 8, until the moment arrived. Boom. The world exploded in light. I felt my chest tremble as I looked up. The fireworks reflected on everyone's faces, faces full of hope, laughter, and togetherness. It wasn't the quiet, formal celebration I knew from home. It was loud, imperfect, alive. People hugged whoever was nearest. A teenage cousin hugged me so tightly I nearly spilled my drink. "Happy New Year, Ate Anya," she yelled. In that moment, I didn't feel like a guest anymore. I felt like family. As midnight stretched into dawn, we feasted again, this time with food that looked endless. Pancit for long life, biko for prosperity, lechon for abundance. I asked one cousin if all these traditions really brought luck. He smiled and said, "Maybe. But even if not, at least it makes everyone happy. And that's already lucky enough." We danced after midnight, the karaoke machine working overtime. The father sang old Eraserhead songs. The mother sang Whitney Houston. Even the grandmother joined in with a slow love song that made everyone emotional. Someone passed me the microphone and shouted, "Anya! Sing Russian song." I hesitated but gave in, singing a soft tune I learned as a child, about snow and waiting for spring. When I finished, the entire room cheered like I had just won a contest. One of the aunts stood up and said, "You see? That's what I love about us Filipinos. Everyone's welcome to the stage." It wasn't about perfection here. It was about participation, about being part of something, about belonging. When I stepped outside to get fresh air, the neighborhood was still alive. Fireworks still went off in the distance. Across the street, strangers waved and shouted, "Happy New Year," even though I didn't know them. I waved back, my heart swelling, and then it hit me. Why Filipinos celebrate Christmas so long, why it starts in September and seems to never end. It's not just about religion or tradition. It's about connection. It's about finding reasons to keep smiling even when life is hard. It's about stretching joy as far as it will go, because the world can be so uncertain, and happiness should never be rushed. I thought back to my first days in Manila, how I'd been shocked hearing Christmas songs in malls 4 months early, how I laughed at the idea of decorating trees in the heat. I used to think it was silly, but now I understood. The long celebration wasn't a joke, it was a declaration. We will celebrate life, no matter what month it is. Later that night, I helped clean up. The family refused to let me wash dishes, so I just wiped the table and looked around. Everyone was tired but smiling. The grandmother sat quietly, sipping coffee, humming a song. She looked up at me and said softly, "You know, anak, Christmas is not really a date. It's a feeling. We just choose to feel it longer." Those words stayed with me. In the following days, as the celebrations slowly quieted down, I found myself walking alone through the city. Manila looked different now, not because the decorations had changed, but because my eyes had. I noticed the tricycle drivers who smiled even in traffic, the street vendors who offered discounts to strangers, the kids who laughed while bathing in rainwater. There was something so simple yet so profound about how people here found meaning in small things. I started volunteering with a local community, distributing food packs after New Year. One day, as I handed out meals, a little girl hugged me and said, "Happy Christmas, 8." I laughed and said, "It's already January." But she shook her head seriously and said, "Christmas is not finished yet." And in that moment, I realized she was right. Because maybe Christmas never ends when your heart is open. Maybe the true spirit of it, generosity, warmth, laughter, doesn't belong to any season. It belongs to people who choose kindness every day. As my time in the Philippines came to an end, I sat by the window of the plane, looking down at the glittering lights below. Somewhere out there, families were still singing karaoke, eating leftovers, telling stories. I smiled. I knew I would never look at Christmas the same way again. Back in Russia, when I returned months later, the snow had already melted. But I found myself humming Pasko na Sinta Ko under my breath while cooking dinner. My mother raised an eyebrow, surprised to hear Tagalog words from me. I just laughed and said, "It's always Christmas in the Philippines." She didn't understand what I meant, not fully. But I did, because the Filipino way of celebrating had taught me something no book, no travel guide ever could. Happiness isn't about waiting for perfect moments. It's about making ordinary moments feel perfect, with food, laughter, and the people you love. And so, every September now, when I hear the first hint of Christmas music online, I smile, remembering those warm nights, the sound of fireworks, the taste of lechon, and the laughter of people who taught me what it truly means to belong. Even thousands of miles away, part of my heart stays in the Philippines, celebrating Christmas, even when the rest of the world has already moved on. Because once you've joined a Filipino Christmas party, even in September, you never really leave it behind.